Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Wednesday morning, the miners are off to the races, a sea of green in the markets, really on the back of strength in Bitcoin, once again crossing the $100,000 threshold, actually getting as high as $101,000 during this morning's trading. Now we have pulled back slightly, we're in the $100,500 range. However, we wanted to talk about what we're seeing on a macro level and the impacts this is having on miner profitability. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below if you took advantage of yesterday's dip, if you're able to top up any of your positions, and how you're feeling about the price of Bitcoin in the final few weeks of 2024. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, so Wednesday morning, the day we've been waiting for here, Anthony, very reminiscent of what we saw last week with a big dump on Monday, Tuesday, some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which we're going to talk about in a second here, and then a big recovery starting Wednesday, hopefully through the back half of the week. So this is really on the backs of Bitcoin making a big run, smashing through $100,000 again this morning. I think through 101 actually at one point. It's pulled back slightly, just north of, I guess, 100,000, 500, 600 area, but definitely some strength here, Anthony, and moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's been a good day today, up over about 4%, and Ethereum's up as well, and a few of the other bigger altcoins are also up nicely today as well. So, great to see it smash through the 100,000 barrier again. A lot of people said, and us included, we thought that, there might be a lot of profit taking at the 100,000 the first time, but this last sort of 3 months has been different. Every time it's pulled back, maybe 4 or 5%, and then it shot through. So, maybe we are seeing a different cycle. But going back to 2020, this time of the year, I remember this time, just before this, I think it was November, and my wife saying to me, "Can we buy some Bitcoin?" I was saying, "You must be joking. This is monopoly money. It's fun." And so she came back to me 4 weeks later, and we did buy some Bitcoin, but we ended up paying twice as much for it. So it can move really quickly this time of the cycle. But we know from everything we've talked about the last 2 or 3 podcasts, we've covered a lot of information about the ETFs, about the impact of the president-elect and the announcement there, and all the positivity around Bitcoin and a Bitcoin adoption, and funds, taking up Bitcoin, more significant this year than previously. The barriers are open now, and people are going there and buying it. The only concern is there's not a lot to sell, and the production at 450 a day isn't a great deal. So, you've got to go out there and find it, because me and you, Bryce, we ain't selling our Bitcoin. And I know there's a few more people out there who are held fast on keeping it. Mike Alpha's not selling his either. That's 3 of us in the gang. so there we go. But yeah, a good day. And, we'll come on to the minor prices in a minute. And Bitcoin's having a nice rise today.
Yeah, it's almost comical in my mind at this point, Anthony, when the miners are down, when Bitcoin is down. Anybody who's even trying to spread FUD around, it just doesn't even bother me. It's like water on a duck's back, they say. One point you made there, Anthony, not listening to your wife. I'm sure you've heard about that mistake a few times. For any of the married viewers here, you should know your wife's always right, I think is what they like to say. Now, we've been doing a lot of work this year, Anthony. Yesterday, I posted our 175th audio podcast. We started that in April only. So over 200 podcasts. You and I have been putting in the hours. I'm going to get a haircut after this today. That's why the hair isn't gelled. Miners are in the green, and I'm feeling very optimistic about today's close. So let's get into the mid-miner update here. Really a sea of green. We've used the term sea of red multiple times this week on the podcast. It has flipped completely. Another thing that's flipped, Argo went from the bottom of the pile to the absolute top here. So that was nice to see as well.
Yeah, I mean, Argo is still significantly down. If you're looking at position from its highs in 2021, it's probably down. I'm going to say 97% or something like that. So maybe even higher than that. So but it's nice to see a little bit of recovery. I know there are still shareholders out there. I still see some of the groups on social media where some of them didn't bother to switch into other mining companies, especially when I'd written the article about Argo and explained about the debt position in the company and that there were opportunities to maybe move that money out at that point in time into other miners that were potentially, better investments moving forward. But a green day for Argo, up nearly 10%. So that'd be pleasing to some of those shareholders. Riot and Bit Digital also having a good day. Cypher's nicely up and Hut's up as well. But, some of these with Bitdeer and Hut, they've had great runs over the last 2 months. So, both of them well over, 100 and 130% up in the last couple of months. It's phenomenal, the increases. The only one in red on the table there at the moment is Soluna, just in red, 0.63% down. So like you say, a green day for mining companies. One thing that I picked up on as well was the volume. So bear in mind, the market's only been open, less than 3 hours, and we're already seeing some of these stocks with massive volumes for the day. So 34 million Mara shares been sold. Bitfarm at nearly 30 million shares been sold. Their average volume trading day is only 33, and they've still got, quite a few hours left of trading to do. And CleanSpark at, nearly 19 million. Riot at over their average volume already. They're at 27 million. The average volume is 26 million. So they've already breached their average volume within the first 2 hours. And yet we're not seeing that in terms of percentage change. So it looks like, there's a few things happening with market makers. Maybe there's some shorts being played here. Causing these, these movements downwards when really we should be seeing more upward pressure in line with the Bitcoin price. We know the mining stocks are more volatile than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up over 4% today. Why aren't the miners up, 9, 10, 11, 12%? Because that's what should be happening. And we're only seeing Argo, but bear in mind, Argo's, if you look at their position in the last 2 months, they're still down something like nearly 40% in the last 2 months. So a great day today, but still down 40% in the last 2 months. And then you look at the likes of Bitdeer, up probably nearly 150% in the last 2 months. There's a stock on the up compared to a stock that's having a challenging period.
Yeah, most definitely. It's great to see the recovery in the miners. Like I say, you and I have been watching this closely for months and months. It appears we've cracked the pattern, Anthony. Sell off on Monday, Tuesday, rally throughout the back half of the week. So you and I have been playing this observation over the last few weeks, making some trades, some buys and sells. But great to see overall Bitcoin making higher highs and higher lows. Now, we love to be objective on the channel, Anthony. We want to look at both sides of the equation. So this week, we've heard some bullish things about Bitcoin. We've heard some bearish things. So we're going to start on the bear side here. Two big pieces of news that came out. Number one, Microsoft, they voted on the addition of Bitcoin to the balance sheet. So Michael Saylor has made 2 presentations to the board now. We've covered those extensively on the channel. They put this to shareholders through a vote, and they've actually turned that down. So we've got some feedback directly from Michael Saylor. This one really surprised me, not to mention that Bitcoin was actually written on a Microsoft Office computer. So interestingly enough, they still don't have appetite 15, 16 years into Bitcoin adoption. I think they may be going down in history regretting this decision.
No, absolutely. And how convenient it was for MicroStrategy to be the latest member to join the NASDAQ 100. And when you consider, MicroStrategy is backed by what Michael Saylor will say is the ultimate strategic reserve, which is of course Bitcoin. And one of his tweets that he put out was, the question is, it isn't if we surpass Microsoft's market cap, it's how fast. And he fully believes that MicroStrategy will benefit from this. I mean, all you have to think about now is where the Bitcoin price is at the moment, where the analysts, the likes of Kathy Wood and lots of other people in the space talking about where they think the Bitcoin price is going to be in sort of like 7, 8, 9 years time, and they're talking about in the millions. That's more than a 10, 11, 12x where it is today. And MicroStrategy's market capitalization last night was probably hovering around the 80 billion mark. So that's going to put MicroStrategy, if the Bitcoin price gets to, a million, how many Bitcoin will MicroStrategy have at that point in time? How much will it improve their market capitalization? They'll be $1 trillion company. So, he might be saying it with a tongue in cheek for a little bit there, but there's actually some reality to this conundrum here. And, it's quite feasible. Look at the growth that MicroStrategy just seen in 2024 alone. It's up, I think it's up over 1,000% this year. And Bitcoin doesn't seem to be holding back at the moment. We're going to look forward to seeing 2025 as the bull cycle really gets going and seeing where Bitcoin can end up. And if any news comes from our friend Dennis with regards to that Bitcoin reserve being approved through the Senate, through the House, it's game over for everything then, really, because not only the US will buy, Bitcoin as a country, then as a state, you'll see a lot of other states around the world having to do this as well, because a lot of currencies are tied to the dollar.
Yeah, they certainly are pegged to the dollar. You brought up some great points there about the addition to the QQQ. We've talked about the addition of these indices, the consistent buying pressure. In order for them to add MicroStrategy, I believe they need to purchase 2.1 billion shares worth, happening mid-December here. So that's going to be a big buying pressure on the stock, hopefully a catalyst for MicroStrategy. Now, Anthony, you've made some predictions on the channel previously saying that you feel Core Scientific will ultimately become the highest valued or highest market cap miner we cover. My prediction here is Bitcoin will surpass a million by the end of the decade, and MicroStrategy will be in the top 25 market cap or sized companies in the world. So I'm going on record saying that one. I'm feeling very good. Bitcoin, in my mind, is the only finite resource. That means, in my mind, it's going to be the most valuable resource. Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy own more of it than anyone else. Seems like a fairly logical or simple equation in my head. Now, the other piece of FUD that came out yesterday from our friends at Simply Bitcoin, talking about this Willow chip. So Google, another one of the Magnificent Seven companies here that we seem to be covering more and more on the channel, they've come out with this new Willow chip. So I don't know a lot about the chips, how this relates to Blackwell or H100 or H200. Apparently, this is part of their quantum computing roadmap, and this has sparked concerns or fears that these computers, these next generation quantum computers, may be able to impact or hurt the integrity of the Bitcoin network due to their processing speeds or speed of calculation. So, Anthony, I know you and I aren't necessarily the biggest tech experts, but I've heard this story many, many times about the Bitcoin network, about the blockchain security. I feel if nobody's cracked it at this point, the team of developers Bitcoin has behind them, I think we can keep up pace with some of these developments.
Yeah, we had something similar come out, I think 2 or 3 years ago. There was an Italian chip designer, and they thought they cracked quantum computing, and they were looking to move to Bitcoin mining, and everyone thought it was game over. That never really occurred. And so, take some of these with a pinch of salt until it actually happens. I mean, Bitcoin's been around 15 years. There's a lot of developers working on it, and the mining companies help keep it safe and ordered. So until we see something physically changed, I think maybe some of the selling in recent days, maybe because of this type of FUD coming out there, and I've even seen some people in the Bitcoin space saying they were selling because 103,000 a coin was higher than they were anticipating so quickly. I mean, bear in mind, When I made that prediction about Core Scientific, the Bitcoin price was probably under 70,000 a coin then. And, we were hearing the likes of Sam Tabar saying until it gets to 130, 140,000, the AI HPC discussion was going to overplay the Bitcoin mining discussion. So, we've still got a way to go there. I know that, Marathon and Riot have got, big hodls. And but they're not getting. We talked about this yesterday. They're not getting the premium for those hodls at the moment. The market's not giving them the premium. They're giving MicroStrategy. They're literally getting the value of the Bitcoin within their company valuation. So if you look at the market capitalization of those companies, say take Riot for instance, and look at the hodl of 11,000 over 11,000 coins. Look at their mining operations, what value that has. Look at the land they've got. Look at the amount of megawatts of power they've got in operation at the moment, just over 900 megawatts, with a couple of hundred still being ready to deploy, and then a further 600 in Corsicana that will start to be expanded into 2025. That's got a valuation probably over $1 billion. The mining operations themselves probably $2 billion. They've got over $1 billion in likes of Bitcoin. And then you compare that to the market capitalization, it's about the same amount. It's not really giving them any, they're not getting any credit for having the Bitcoin at the moment. Whereas MicroStrategy clearly getting, effectively a 2x on their Bitcoin holdings. So, it might prove if this strategy is, that like the two or three of these miners are now adopting, using the convertible notes, buying Bitcoin, strengthening the balance sheet from their perspective that way. This might, give them that MicroStrategy effect, but we haven't seen it yet. And actually, if we look at the likes of, Marathon, with that massive balance, that share price is up 44% in the last 2 months. And then you've got the likes of Bitdeer, which is up 148% in the last 2 months. So, please someone explain to me, why the miners are not getting some of the credibility for growing these hodls that everyone's talking about at the moment. And, bear in mind next year, the HPC revenues start for Core Scientific. And we know what those are. We know what the margins are. It's effectively $500 million of profit every year for the next 12, 13 years. And then they've got 2 extensions on top of that they can take out. So that's predictable revenues. Let's see how much the Bitcoin price has to be for Marathon to achieve 500 million net profit based on mining operations, not on some FASB rule that gives them the benefit of increasing the balance sheet.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey, I was going to say Bitdeer implemented a hodl, so maybe the market's really rewarding them for that already. Now, just a quick note session here, you guys. Anthony, you hit on these key points. I wanted to stress them. This is the 3 reasons we think miners are going to outperform MicroStrategy from here on out. Number 1, miners hodl has not been given the same NAV premium or appreciation that we're seeing with MicroStrategy, despite increasing hodls and adopting the same strategy of those senior notes or senior convertible notes that MicroStrategy has taken. Number 2, the underlying business of MicroStrategy is not correlated to Bitcoin. Miners are. So the data centers, the infrastructure, the machines, the rigs, all of that appreciates exponentially with Bitcoin and pushes the potential HPC margins or discussion higher as they now have to compete with higher Bitcoin revenue. So that's another key differentiator. And the third one here, Anthony, is the ability to dollar cost average down on their Bitcoin by that hybrid approach of mining it for the electricity cost and purchasing it at spot, giving you an average lower price than what MicroStrategy is able to purchase. So those are my 3 highlights here, you guys. Take note of that. We will do a follow-up video in a few months and see how MicroStrategy has performed compared to the miners since that initial video.
I'll add a 4th to that, Bryce, while we're on the subject. Mining rigs will start to appreciate as the Bitcoin price appreciates and new mining machines become more expensive to purchase, as we saw in 2021. The likes of, Marathon and Riot were buying these S19s when they came out for about $3,000 a machine, or about $30 per terahash. Later in that year, some mining companies were paying $80, $90 a terahash during that year. So that's how much machines depreciated. And in 2022, we saw these machines come down in value, and mining companies had borrowed money and had the machines as collateral. And we know from some of the big news stories in 2022, 2023, the likes of Bitfarms had borrowed money with NYDIG to pay for machines and use the machines as collateral. Well, the value of Bitcoin went down, the value of the machines went down. They then sort of basically said to NYDIG, we owe you, I don't think it was 25 million. We can afford to pay you 7. And I think the rest of it was written off. So, and also IREN, who also borrowed money from NYDIG, a serious amount of money. I think they owed over 100 million. And when it came round to make the payments, I think it was November, December 2022, and the price of Bitcoin fell so much and the value of machines had fell so much. The value of the machines was only about just over 60 million. So there was a case of, if you don't make the payments, you default and we'll take the machines over. And they said, well, come and collect them because we're not making any more payments. And so they then handed all the machines over, and they had to effectively nearly restart the whole company again. But they did have cash within the main company. These were SVPs that held the mining rigs. That can happen, but in appreciation times, when Bitcoin price is rising, machine prices also rise. And I've seen, social media stories where people, even retail investors, have been buying machines through the likes of Compass Mining or other mining companies like Bitdeer, where you can buy machines, let them host them, and you earn some revenues. And they've made profits on the revenues, but they've also made profits on the machine appreciation this year. So, it's like a double-edged sword for them. And it's great when the Bitcoin price is rising. Lo and behold, when it doesn't rise, the reverse effects.
Yeah, we'll deal with that in a couple of years, Anthony. We're on the ups right now. I was referring to that point as part of infrastructure, so we'll call that 2.1, Anthony. But I'm glad you added some detail to the machines. But I was referring to the rigs and data centers appreciating in value. Now, we heard comments from Eric Trump speaking in Abu Dhabi yesterday, saying he thinks Bitcoin could go up to $1 million. We now have a statement from Trump coming out saying he is very focused on the price of Bitcoin. Trump views this as another stock market. We know he loves to use the stock market as a barometer or a metric towards his success. And Trump would love to see Bitcoin hit 150,000 early in his presidency. So, Anthony, this, coupled with what we just heard from Dennis Porter yesterday in relation to the strategic Bitcoin reserve, the number of states that are interested in doing this, pension funds, countries, again, compared to the FUD we just talked about, doesn't even classify in the same caliber in my mind. There is so much global demand for this finite fixed resource. We're going to talk about the distribution in a second. Limitless demand, finite supply. There is only one way for Bitcoin to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the law of economics. We've seen these ETFs, we've seen Michael Saylor alone buying, staggeringly more Bitcoin than can produce. I mean, this week's purchases alone, we talked about 45 days of production in one go. He's bought it in one go. The week before, 200 days of production have been purchased by the ETFs and Michael Saylor. This is like, within 2 weeks, we just can't produce enough Bitcoin. There's only 450 a day. And Michael Saylor's saying, I want that and some, just to fill his satisfaction. But he'll need to come with a big figure to me to get my Bitcoin, believe you me. I don't know about you, Bryce. But
yeah, he definitely will. That's a good segue, Anthony. You talked about the Bitcoin distribution yesterday. So we made a joke that Michael Saylor's got to leave some for the rest of us. I found this table last night, so I sent it over. You're the accountant here. 17.6% of 21 million. I think that's around 3.5 million or so. That's apparently what's lost. So you take that 21 million, you reduce it by 3.5. That pie is shrinking quicker and quicker.
Yeah, you take that away, and you can also probably take away the 5.2% in the Satoshi wallet as well. maybe because there's rumors that that won't be used up either. So that's like getting on for a quarter of the whole pie gone. What have you got left? You've got three-quarters of the pie left, and Michael Saylor wants probably a quarter of it. So get in there quick and start buying. But there's not a lot left. So and we're talking now. There's only going to be 21 million ever produced, and there's probably close to 20 million already produced. This last million or so is going to take the next 116 years, 115 years to produce them. So, the vast bulk of it, the vast 96% of all Bitcoin has already been mined. It's already out there. And Michael Saylor wants all of it. And so do the ETFs. And if the US wants to start buying 200,000 coins a year for the next 5 years, think of all the other countries that will want to do the same, just to make sure they're keeping up with the USA and following suit that way. El Salvador was the first country to adopt it, and look at what they've done with the Bitcoin there. People were saying it was a terrible thing to do. They should never have done that. And all you can see is the fact it's strengthened that country's treasury position there. So, and we had Dennis on yesterday. His parents have lived there for the last 15 years. It lines up with when Bitcoin was actually, sort of like, when it came to the forefront 15 years ago, just celebrated its 15th anniversary. I don't think there's a connection there. I'm just saying it just happens to be the same time period, but. They must be, very much in the space as well, because that country give every member of the resident there a Bitcoin wallet when they started to use their treasury to buy Bitcoin, and put, I think it was about $30 in every wallet, to give people an opportunity to start using it, understand it. And there's been a lot of education going out there as well. We know Max Kaiser and his wife are living in there, and they do a lot of education out there as well. So there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin space moved to El Salvador, flying the flag with the people that live there. So it's a really positive news story. Yes, it's a small country, but you start with an acorn and you grow an oak tree. So that's the way to look at it. And El Salvador was the first one, and it'll always be remembered for being the first one as well. So let's not forget that. There'll be more to follow. And I'm looking forward to the news maybe tomorrow on the Spaces meeting to see what more news updates Dennis brings. He hinted there was a bigger news story coming out on Thursday. And we were hoping to try and get a scoop in advance, but his lips were sealed tight. He could not release any more information until Thursday, but there'll be a big Space meeting tomorrow to cover that.
What a beautiful acorn metaphor, Anthony. You're taking a page out of my garden, planting my seed, letting it grow. Hey, I just wanted to mention, if there are still any naysayers in El Salvador, they're not into Bitcoin, Microsoft is hiring if they actually need to go get some employment. So just kidding. Now we move on, Anthony. You talked about ETFs. We bring up HODL 15 quite often on the channel. This is another great visual showing the ETF inflows, but it breaks it out by company. So you can actually see all the different tickers up top. Now, if we look back to the start of December, I'll read these out. December 2nd, 354 million, 676 following that, 558, 767, 377, 479. The 10th of December, an additional $439 million worth of inflows. So you're seeing, despite this volatility, this chop we've talked about at the $100,000 level, big money is continuing to push into Bitcoin relentlessly.
Yeah, I mean, $45 million a day of Bitcoin is produced, and these are buying on average 10, 12 days production every day. It can't keep going on as much as we'd like it to. It just isn't enough supply out there to buy. That chap in the UK who lost his hard drive in a council tip has offered him, I think, 175 million now if they'll help allow him to start looking for it, and he's got some backing to try and do that as well. It wouldn't be the council doing it, so that's another story there, because that's worth, I think it's worth upwards of about 700, 800 million, his Bitcoin, that he tossed away the hard drive back in 2014 or 15 or something like that. Didn't think that was going to go any further, and look at where the price is today. So he's been trying to get something, but the council have been rock solid and saying no. But he's managed to get some really interesting people to back him, really big names out there, and they said they'll take a slice if they find it, because it's going to take, I think the fee to do it was about 11 million pounds to actually dig up and search for it. And they were going to use robotic machines to try and search for it as well, so they could find the drive. And even the engineers were saying no matter how bad the machine drive was damaged, it could still be effectively recreated and to find that wallet on there, and then obviously him get his 700 million, pay out everybody, and still walk away with a nice amount of money, never have to worry about paying the bills again.
A modern day sunken treasure, just like the old Spanish galleons we were on in Amsterdam, Anthony. Now
Absolutely.
people are looking for treasure in landfills. I think it was actually his girlfriend who threw out the hard drive. So talk about feeling bad for that move. I don't know why this guy's asking for permission. I would be living in that landfill with a snorkel, digging every night, trying to find that thing. I might actually come over there and go take a look for myself. But yeah, just heartbreak stories you hear about Bitcoin, and that guy obviously taking up a big portion of the pie under the lost column, unfortunately. So
I think you can park it under the sort of like, if my auntie had whiskers, she'd be called my uncle. So it's one of those if scenarios. And so, yeah, I mean, it's tragic, but I mean, you never had it for the last 10 years. It's only now that the price is so high. I mean, he's really pressing to have it done now because, wouldn't everybody? But yeah, we can all say if we'd have done something different in our life, things would have been might have been different, and who knows.
For sure. And for all we know, he could have sold it the next day. But a great example of the fortunes that can be won and lost in the Bitcoin market based on the volatility we see on a daily basis. And with that being said, Anthony, just in the short duration of this podcast, the miners have dropped off substantially here. So it will be interesting to see how they recover in the last few hours of trading. Again, your guess is as good as mine, but long term, from a fundamental perspective, we are rock solid on these investments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Bitcoin is just slightly under 100,000, but the miners are effectively back to where they start off at the start of the day. So
there you go. You guys, let us know in the comment section below. Are we going to finish red or green today? Where will Bitcoin finish off 2024? If you're still watching, smash the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.